If you're someone like me that really appreciates revolvers and enjoys shooting them, you've probably had some interest in looking to compete with them. And when I went down that road a few years ago, I was pretty dismayed to find that the competitions out there that get most of the media coverage, especially here online, most of those are structured in such a way that places heavy emphasis on reloading. And that basically necessitates one type of revolver that I have no interest in, and all of the specialized clips and gear that goes along with it. Even some other competitions out there with classic revolver divisions end up putting the same emphasis on reloading, and that ends up requiring similar sorts of gear to be competitive. I personally have more interest in shooting than reloading, so in 2023 when I found out the Civilian Marksmanship Program sanctions a revolver-only match called the Distinguished Service Revolver Program, I was very excited. Now, most of you probably know the CMP as the place to get an M1 Garand, but they actually started as the National Board for the Promotion of Rifle Practice. And since about 1903, their primary function has been sanctioning and facilitating competitive marksmanship programs with the goal of improving the American people's shooting ability in case there's a wartime need. The Distinguished Service Revolver Program started in 2022 as an offshoot of the Distinguished Rifle and Pistol Badge Program. The United States military started that back in the 1880s. In fact, the Distinguished Badge Program is the oldest badge or award for marksmanship in the United States military, even older than the regular qualification badges most people are familiar with. So while the Distinguished Service Revolver Program and badge are only 4 years old, it has its roots in over a century of military and shooting history. So there are basically two components to the Distinguished Revolver Program. There's the match itself when you're actually on the firing line, and then there's the larger long-term goal of earning the Distinguished Revolver Badge, and you do that by placing high enough in multiple matches. First, let's take a look at the match structure itself, and I will be demonstrating this at the end of the video so you can see what that match structure looks like in practice. The Distinguished Service Revolver match is shot standing, one-handed at distances of 50 and 25 yards. The course of fire consists of 2 slow fire series, 1 time fire series, and 1 rapid fire series. Slow fire is 10 shots in 10 minutes at a distance of 50 yards on the B6 target. Time fire is 2 strings of 5 shots fired in a time limit of 20 seconds per string at 25 yards on a B8 target. Rapid fire is 2 strings of 5 shots fired in a time limit of 10 seconds per string at 25 yards on a B8 target. In between every string, you're given time to load and prepare. The dimensions of the targets are on screen now. So as you can tell, just like all of bullseye pistol shooting, it is a very simple game with unchanging targets, distances, and time limits, and that's exactly what makes this type of competition very objective, extremely skill-based, and entirely reliant on just your shooting ability. You might have also noticed that at no point do you shoot more than 5 shots. This means even a 5-shot revolver, which is typically the smallest capacity available, can be successfully used in this type of competition. I know of at least one person who shoots a 5-shot, 5-inch barreled Smith & Wesson Model 60 in competition. So if you find that the smaller revolver fits your hand better, or that's just the revolver you've got, you could absolutely shoot that in the match and be successful with it. The match rules specify that a revolver used must be chambered between the calibers of 38 Special 9mm and 45. Additionally, barrels may not exceed 6.5 inches and the triggers may not weigh less than 2.5 pounds. You're also not allowed to have a system of recoil mitigation such as ports or compensators. Your revolver's grips or stocks must be symmetrical in function. This means no anatomical or orthopedic grips like the kind you see on Olympic-style pistols, but it is okay if your grips have a speed loader or extractor cutout. You're also allowed to have 1 layer of grip or non-slip tape on your grips or stocks. And lastly, only open sights or iron sights are allowed. This means no optical sights, red dots, or scopes. Those are pretty much the major points and all the gear you'll need for this match. You can read the full rules under section 5.1.3 titled Service Revolvers in the CMP rulebook, which I will link below. But just to give you an example, this Smith & Wesson K38 I've shown several times on this channel is basically maxed out under these rules. It has a 6-inch barrel, a 2 3/4 pound trigger, target stocks, and inside-out tape on one of the grip panels. If you have a barrel that's shorter than this, a heavier trigger, you can use it in the match. And frankly, any revolver with a 3 to 6-inch barrel configuration is going to be competitive. Even having adjustable sights is not strictly necessary if you learn where to hold your sights before the match, which is something you can figure out in this thing that's known as practice. As a personal testament to that, after shooting my best score ever at my last match, I do not make a sight correction from 50 to 25 yards anymore. I just change where I hold the sights. This revolver has not had a trigger job. It only has a lightened rebound spring. So for all intents and purposes, this is the way that Smith & Wesson shipped this gun back in 1955. And it's still top of the line in regards to putting holes exactly where you want them. I have a full video on this specific revolver if you want to check that out. It goes into the history of it, some famous shooters that used it, and my own personal shooting experience with it. Now, I do plan on making a guide to this match in regards to specific revolver model recommendations, techniques, and tips for earning the Distinguished Badge. But if you take nothing else from this video and you don't have a revolver or you want a revolver for just pure shooting pleasure, get a Smith & Wesson K38 or Model 14. So now let's talk about sort of the overarching goal of this program, which is earning the Distinguished Badge. Just like the Distinguished Rifle and Pistol programs, to earn the Distinguished Revolver Badge, you need to earn 30 Excellence in Competition points. You earn these EIC points by placing in the top 10% of non-distinguished shooters in a match. So that means when you first start, you're only competing for points against other non-distinguished shooters or shooters who have not earned the Distinguished Badge yet. And of course, that helps level the playing field in terms of skill. You can earn a 6, 8, or 10-point award from each match. These are also called legs, and EIC points are often referred to as leg points. The number of 6, 8, and 10-point legs awarded in a match is determined by the number of non-distinguished shooters in multiples of 10. If 50 non-distinguished shooters participate in a match, there will be 5 legs awarded, with the first and second place earning 10 and 8 points. Third through fifth place would earn 6 points each. Again, that's just a very brief overview. I would encourage you to read more about this in the CMP rulebook. Section 9 governs excellence in competition matches, which the Distinguished Revolver match falls under, and Section 10 governs the Distinguished Badge program. Last but certainly not least, let's talk about how to find and sign up for these matches. The website we use is called the CMP Competition Tracker. You can get there by going to ct.thecmp.org. You don't need an account on the competition tracker to search up matches, but I recommend you make one so you get issued a competitor number. You can sign up for matches electronically, and this is also where you can track your scores and classifications and distinguish points once they're input into the system. This account is totally free, by the way. There's no membership fee or anything like that. You only have to pay for any matches that you sign up for. Once we're on the competition tracker, we're going to hover over the competitions tab. It should drop down. Click on the option that says upcoming by event type. Once you're there, click on Revolver to filter this list down to only the events which have revolver matches. And from here, you can sort this however you like by clicking the tops of these columns, like the date, the state, etc. Note that many, if not most of these events are larger events, which are not solely revolver matches. So if you sign up for one of these, while you're there, you may as well shoot some of the other matches like service pistol, 22 EIC, match pistol, maybe even rifle. You can shoot a revolver for score in the match pistol events as well. Primarily, this is going to be what's called the Centerfire 900. And if you have a 22 caliber or 45 caliber revolver, you could shoot those in the 22 caliber or 45 caliber 900s respectively. And really, this is the cool thing about this match and bullseye history in general, is that back in the day, from the 1930s to about the late 1950s to early 1960s, the Centerfire 900 was dominated by revolvers. Again, this same 270 shot course of fire of 22 caliber Centerfire and 45 caliber 90 shot matches making up the 2,700 point aggregate has been the exact same since the 1930s. Well, sometime around the 1950s, people figured out how to make super accurate 45 caliber and 38 caliber 1911s, and very quickly these took over the top level of competition. And of course, you can shoot your 45 1911 in the Centerfire match. So for a long time, from say around the 1960s to very recently, there's been very little reason for anyone to shoot a revolver in bullseye, let alone one with iron sights. The NRA actually started their own Distinguished Revolver program, I want to say a little over a decade ago. Those matches today are so few and far between that I didn't really want to get into it in this video. Basically, the rules are the same as the CMP, but it's limited to 38 special only, and you only shoot one slow fire instead of 2. The NRA also has the Harry Reeves revolver match at the NRA Nationals every year, which is an open revolver competition. So you can have red dots and compensators and stuff. But really, I think the CMP's handling of the Distinguished Service Revolver match has done a lot to get people interested in shooting a revolver again. The CMP, of course, has administered the Distinguished Badge program for, I think, over 100 years now. Of course, they've been doing it so long, they just do a really good job of making sure scores are input quickly, points are awarded correctly, and you get your badge in a timely fashion once you earn it. Also, if you earn any Distinguished Badge, it's numbered to you. It's a unique number. And if you attend the national matches, which have been held at Camp Perry since 1905, you'll get your badge pinned on you on stage. And that stage at Camp Perry is basically hollowed ground. You have to think of all of the distinguished shooters, national champions, Olympians for both rifle and pistol that have walked across that stage since the beginning. If you're interested in attending the national matches, they will be from the 13th through 18th of July this year, 2026, and you can sign up on the CMP competition tracker. The Revolver match is following the Centerfire 900 on Thursday, so that would be an excellent opportunity to shoot your revolver for 90 shots in preparation for the 40-shot service revolver match right after it. So that's pretty much all there is to it. Bullseye is pretty simple. Like I said, I'm going to make a more detailed guide talking about techniques and such, so stay tuned for that. Now I'm going to go ahead and roll the footage I took of me demonstrating this match. All right, so this is a series of slow fire, the first of two series of slow fire. This is shot at 50 yards on the B6 target. The B6 target has the same dimensions and scoring rings as the B8 target. The only difference is the 8 ring is colored in on the B6 target to make it easier to see at 50 yards. You'll notice here in the beginning I'm checking the camera to try and spot the shots. I would say a spotting scope is a nice thing to have in Bullseye, and after maybe your first or second match you should probably get one. It doesn't have to be a very good spotting scope, but you don't strictly need it. And in this video that I filmed here, you'll notice I'm really struggling to see those shots. So beyond those two shots that were in the 7 ring in the white, I literally could not see any of these shots that were in the Bullseye because the screen was completely washed out by the sun. And that's why you'll see this group that I'm making is just completely off to the left. I should have corrected for that, and if I'd known where the shots were hitting, I would have been able to do that. Now, I could have zeroed off those first two shots, but I didn't have a very good call on them. And again, I have no idea where these hand loads were hitting. This was a different hand load I was shooting than my normal load. Not exactly sure where these are hitting. And occasionally you'll see me struggle loading and extracting these rounds because when I loaded them, I guess I bulged the cases a little bit, so they were a little fat and weren't going into the chambers real easy. For some reason my cases bulged out here when I loaded these rounds. I know slow fire can be pretty excruciating to watch sometimes, but I promise it's a lot more fun to shoot. That time goes pretty quickly, and really it's one of the reasons why I like Bullseye, because you spend a lot of time shooting at the match. There's a lot of matches where they run one individual through one stage at a time, and those stages last for maybe a minute and a half, maybe. And if you're any good at those types of sports, you shoot less time, the better you are. I've got no clue where these are hitting. I can't see shit through the scope. For example, I shoot Glock matches, and those are structured that way. And the better I shoot, the less time I spend shooting at the match. And the total time I spend shooting at the match is sometimes less than a couple minutes. In Bullseye, within the first slow fire stage, you already get your money's worth. You get 10 minutes to shoot. And if you are doing what you're supposed to, which is executing the shooting process, aligning the sights and pulling the trigger, and doing that deliberately and intentionally, and really paying attention to what you're doing, those 10 minutes, you really end up using those 10 minutes, and the time goes by pretty quick. Didn't like that one. Felt like I jerked it. Whew, that was bad. Oh, wow. It's a very good group. But it's off to the left. So I'm using a different bullet. I normally use an HG60, HG number 50 bullet, which is a button nose wad cutter. These are a Lee 148 grain double-ended wad cutter, and I haven't loaded them in a while. And I guess when I change the load a little bit, it changes my point of impact. So I've got a really good group here. That would have been really nice in the 9 ring, wouldn't it? But let's go ahead and score it. Okay, 3, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 14, 86 with 0. So I think I'm gonna come 2 clicks to the right. Now, for the astute viewers among you who have watched some of my President's 100 videos where I shoot a gun and try to make the cut score for the President's 100, you might notice that this course of fire is the same. It's got 2 slow fires, 1 time fire, and 1 rapid fire, and that's correct. The Distinguished Revolver match uses the President's Pistol match course, which is the course of fire used in the President's Pistol match. So, all things being equal, these scores between this Revolver match and my President's 100 videos are directly comparable because the targets are the same, the distances are the same. Now, the match conditions aren't quite the same. The wind on this day was pretty calm, but again, all else being equal, you can directly compare the scores. And that's one of the cool things about Bullseye is you can look at a score from 1954 and compare your score to theirs. If it's an indoor score on the same range sometimes, you can directly compare your scores to that person, which is a really cool feature of Bullseye that you just don't get with other sports. Again, I can't see where these are going because my screen's completely washed out. The sun is a deadly laser. And the other thing is too, with looking at a score, just the numerical score, you can kind of figure what kind of group they shot in the match. You know the scoring ring sizes. The scoring ring sizes haven't changed since I think the 1890s or the 1900s. The standard American pistol target, which preceded the B6 and B8 targets, they had the exact same scoring ring sizes. It's just a really cool thing. It's sort of like, the closest thing that reminds me to is the old Marine Corps rifle qualification, Table 1. It was the same course of fire shot since like 1903. So you could take your score with an M16A4 that you fired in boot camp in the 2010s and directly compare that to any Marine that shot that same course of fire on the same ranges going back to 1903. And it's just a shame that the Marine Corps doesn't do that qualification anymore, as far as I'm aware. But here in Bullseye Land, we still shoot the same course of fire, and in this instance, I'm shooting the same gun. I presume the guy who owned this gun before me was a shooter, because when it came to me, it came with a set of anatomical orthopedic target grips, and it looked like it'd been shot. It had marks on the sights for, I guess, zeros, and you could see where the guy's sweat from his hand had kind of eroded the bluing around the grip and everything like that. So in some instances, we're not just shooting the same course of fire, we're literally shooting the exact same gear that they were back in 1955. Thought I could go for the follow-up shot, but chickened out. Chickened out again. There we go. Went for the follow-up shot. I think that one hit a little high, maybe in the 8 ring. These rounds hit lower than my normal hand loads though. All right, pretty decent group. Just walking around the 10 ring, the 1-8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 9s. 91 with 2. All right, so now we're gonna move to 25 yards and we're gonna be shooting timed and rapid fire. All right, so next up is timed fire. That's 5 shots in 20 seconds. We're gonna do that twice.
Is the firing line ready? The firing line is ready. Ready on the right. Ready on the left. Ready on the firing line. Is the firing line ready? The firing line is ready. Ready on the right. Ready on the left. Ready on the firing line.
All right, see how we did? Looks good from here. Looks like we have 1-8, 1-9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 X's and 1 10. So that would be a 97 with 7 X's. Next up is rapid fire. This is what really separates the men from the boys in Revolver. 5 shots in 10 seconds, 25 yards on the B8 target. Standard American pistol target.
Is the firing line ready? The firing line is ready. Ready on the right. Ready on the left. Ready on the firing line.
Felt a little loose.
The firing line is ready. Ready on the right. Ready on the left. Ready on the firing line.
Well, unfortunately, I let a shot go early, which is something that happens in bullseye. And when that happens, you have to make sure not to let it distract you and just continue on with your regular rapid fire string. It's going to cost you 10 points. It counts as a miss, but you never know. This might still work out to be a pretty decent score. Unfortunately, with a whistle match, there's no way to tell which shot was the early shot. So in the instance that you have extra rounds on target, there should only be 9 on here because I fired an extra shot. So if the target was facing this way, I would have hit the frame, or I would have hit the backside of the target or something, or I would have sent it into the dirt. But since it's a whistle match, it's here on paper. Unfortunately, when there's 10 shots here on paper and I shot one early, I have to get the low 10 shots. So it looks like this is an 8, and this one's barely touching the 10 ring. That's a 10. So it looks like it costs me an X. So that's minus 10 points. So I've got 8, and then 1 8, 1 2 3 4 5 6 10s, and 1 2 X's, and 1 miss. So that would be 2 12. So that'd be an 88 with 2 X's. Still, you know, for revolver rapid fire, if you're going anything above a 90, like you're doing pretty good for yourself. So that's really not a bad target. I wish I would have waited a quarter of a second longer for that first shot to break, but you know, unfortunately this is what we got here. So let's go ahead and total this up. So my score ended up working out to 362 with 11 X's, including the early shot, which of course counts as a miss. For Revolver, that's still a very good score. To put that in perspective, that would have been third out of about 250 competitors at last year's national revolver match. And in any year since this program started, it would have put you in the top 10 at the nationals. At any local, state, or regional revolver match, this would almost certainly earn you points towards your badge and might even win the match outright. And as you saw, that's including a 10-point subtraction, and for my first target, my gun wasn't even zeroed for that ammunition. A lot of this has to do with the fact that we've sort of collectively lost the skills that shooters had with revolvers in the 1930s through the 1950s, and a lot of people are still trying to figure it out again. I mean, you have to think, in 1950, when Bill McMillan became the first man to break 2650 out of 2,700 points in the 270 shot aggregate, he did it with a revolver in the center fire portion of that match. That's a 98.2% score average. So it would be the same as if I just shot a 393 on camera out of 400 points. And he could keep that pace up for 90 shots with a revolver, not just the 40 shots of this particular match. If you're interested in learning how to shoot a revolver, I highly recommend watching Bill McMillan's training film from the 1960s and watch his revolver technique closely. It's the same one that I use. You'll also notice I like to copy a lot of his trick shots. I have that video here on my channel. Like I said, I do plan on making a follow-up video going more into technique and specific gear recommendations, but for right now, thank you all for watching. Thank you to my channel members and Patreon supporters. I hope you all enjoyed this presentation, and I hope to see you all out there on the firing line.